This week on List Rate Rank.
And I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say that our expert guest probably has none of these.
On List Rate Rank, our hosts research various topics and each bring their own top 5 list to the show. Together they debate, discuss, and deliberate, and with the help of an expert, one definitive and indisputable top 5 list is created.
Look, Lydia, we asked you on here 4 answers.
This is List Rate Rank.
All right, welcome to List Rate Rank. I'm David Fedor.
And I'm Felicia Gillespie.
And today we are talking about the top 5 ways to quit your job. Felicia, that's got to be one of the most exciting things to do, quitting your job. Or at least it has been for me. I don't know about you.
I've always felt bad about quitting my jobs because I'm awesome, and these people are going to miss me. So I have guilt about it when I quit.
See, to me, there's the rush of adrenaline. There's the excitement of, is this a mistake? Is this my destiny? Is this what I should be doing? It's always like one of those crossroad moments of your life, and you can't replicate that in other ways. What?
I think it's funny. You are like kind of a dramatic person in that way. Not like dramatic in the negative sense, but in the positive sense, you know. So
I could go negative if you want me to go negative. I've had plenty of those experiences as well. But like the just looking into the unknown or taking a chance on yourself or just getting out of a bad situation, quitting a job could be a monumental thing. So there's obviously a lot of different ways to do this, positively and negatively. We could bust out the top 5 on our lists, and then after the break, we'll talk with our expert and see what she says.
Can't wait to hear your top 5.
All right. Well, earlier today we had a diving competition, and I won. I hit the triple Lindy, and it was gorgeous. Felicia, you had trouble with yours.
Yeah, I dove into the 3-foot end of the pool, cracked my neck. I'm in the hospital recording this right now.
Yeah, and thank you for taking time out of your recovery to join us today.
What else am I going to do?
That's true. That is true. So I will go first. So my number 5 on my top 5 list of ways to quit your job is the classic staple, the walkout. There's nothing more satisfying than a silent, dignified, and proud march out the door. Just right in your middle of your shift, put your head up, put your chin up, and just walk out. Like I did it once. I could clearly remember the day because my manager at the time, there were like 3 managers, and the new manager was being all tough. And later I found out he was like, yeah, I was trying to screw with Fedor and find out what it'd take for him to snap and blah, blah. And I'm like, whatever. I can remember people calling after me like, Dave, what are you doing? Where are you going? What are you? And I just walked right out, went down the street to a competing restaurant where I had some friends working. I knew one of the managers. I interviewed right there that day in my uniform from the other restaurant, got hired, and then started 2 days later.
That is amazing.
It was awesome. It was one of my coworkers, my ex-coworkers, was like, oh, when I saw you walking, it was just like, go, Dave, go. And I was like, yeah, that's the beauty of the walkout, my number 5.
Oh man, I love that one. That in your work uniform, just boom, boom.
Yeah.
That is that's glorious. This one is not, my number 5 is not exactly like that. It's just no call, no show, just disappear. You just disappear quietly, like you said a little bit, until your last paycheck comes, and then you show up in person to collect it. And I have done this a couple of times. The first time I did this was when I was in high school. My first job was in a movie theater. My grandmother died. I had to take 5 days off. Her funeral was out of state. A month later, I called off again, and I said, my grandmother died, thinking they're not going to question that, right? Like,
well, yeah, usually people have 2 grandmothers. It could happen.
Absolutely. It's not out of the question at all. But then my coworkers were like, hey, our bosses, when they heard you say that, they were like, how many grandmothers does she have? And this kind of triggered, the egomaniac in me. And I was like, 2 grandmothers, and they died, and I'm just not ever going back. And it was like, you can't question how many grandmothers I can pull out of my ass, or I'm not showing up for work, Because look, you've got 2 grandmothers.
Right.
Your mom's mom, your dad's mom.
At least.
I'm 17 years old at the time. I have 2 parents.
Yeah.
Not so.
Like they have no right to like demand any kind of family tree, any kind of obituaries, nothing.
Well, it was also kind of like an insult to my character. Like, how many grandmothers does, like, I'm some kind of garbage person who grew up in a dumpster, and I don't come from this family that's rich with grandmotherly love. Like, screw you. Of course I have 2 grandmothers. So,
Don't they know we have popcorn to start slinging?
I'm just like done with these people. I don't show up for my shifts. I'm not taking their calls. I'm not calling them. I stopped taking calls from coworkers. So, it's so, okay.
Felicia, the Matrix Reloaded people demand their jujubes and their popcorn. Where are you? Get your ass in here.
2 grandmothers is easy. Now, you throw in the possibility of great-grandmothers. If I have 2 great-grandmothers and 2 regular grandmothers, that's 4 grandmothers right there. I could have 4 grandma. I could call off 2 more times and it not even be a big deal. Now, if my parents have 2 grandmothers each, that's 4 great-grandmothers and 2 regular, that's 6 grandmothers, okay? Now, if both my parents were adopted and later on they reconnected with their biological parents, this number doubles. Now I have 12 grandmothers. So I could call off once a month for 5 days for a year and you can't do shit about it. That's the way I see it.
Everybody's entitled by law.
And then you start over the next year with grandfathers, because grandfathers die pretty quickly after the grandmothers die. They're lonely and grieving. They can't take it. Their heart's broken. They die.
Well, but it's just one gender per year, though, right? You got to work through the grandmothers before you work through grandfathers. Otherwise, it'll be like weird.
Yeah, that viral video that came out where parents were throwing a blanket over their children, and then they pull the blanket off and pretend like the kid is invisible. I'm like the opposite of that. I throw the blanket over you, I yank it off, and you're in a room just filled to the brim with my grandmothers. That's how I do it. I just pull grandmothers out of my ass, and I did not like being questioned. Now listen, they were right. I only had 1 grandmother, but they don't know that.
Well, if they listen to this, now they know.
So that's my number 5, is just to stop showing up. Go AWOL.
Awesome. Well, my number 4 is the exact opposite of the situation that you described. And I'm not talking about, start bringing your grandparents to work. I'm saying quit with notice, with 2 weeks notice, give it a proper, polite, the preferred way. Sometimes you got to do what's right. You have to be the mature one. You have to be the bigger person. The company has time to replace you. If they bring somebody in quickly, you might be able to help train the new person coming in. Your boss will then be like, you know what, you're all right. I'm going to mentor you and be a source of experience that you could lean on me. You're not burning any bridges. You could go back to this company again if you change your mind, or if another position comes open that you want. Because you wrote that nice letter, you gave a notice, 2 weeks. Some people prefer, sometimes it's a month or longer. It's up to you. But that's my number 4, give notice.
I agree with you, but it's not my number 4 because I put more importance on it than you did because I'm a more responsible person. So my number 4 is to write a letter telling everyone off. My boyfriend at the time did this. He was working at a place where a lot of people weren't being appreciated, and it was, legitimately unfair, the things that were going on, and he decided to quit, and he wrote a long letter and he posted it up on in the office for everyone to read. And I thought it was really great because you get to have your say, you get to communicate your feelings and thoughts, and there are other people in the building who feel less alone. They see the same things. They're like, oh my God, this guy gets it. And it also makes the manager look like an incompetent ass. So I think that one's a pretty good move, just to write a letter. That is good.
Yeah. This guy speaks for the people.
Yes.
Yeah. His feelings are my feelings.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
Nice. Well, my number 3, to continue, because I have nothing else to add to that, because that is a very strong move. But my number 3 is even a stronger move. It's actually moving. So, good way to quit your job is just get the hell out of Dodge, just completely relocate to a different zip code. Just ghost the place, start over somewhere else. Nobody knows you. You could start something new. You could get a new job doing something else. It could be in conjunction with another way to quit your job. You could write the letter and then just ghost the company. Don't even pick up your last paycheck. Maybe they'll direct deposit it if you're lucky. But no notice, no nothing. Just drop off the face of the earth. Change your name if you need to. Change your face if you want to. But my number 3 way is a more dramatic one. Just ghost and move.
Yeah, that's similar to my number 5, but it really takes it up a notch. It's very gangster. I love that one.
Yeah. Hey, whatever happened to Dale? Who's Dale? That guy in the corner. Yeah, I was friends with him on Facebook, and then all of a sudden his Facebook was gone.
My number 3 is to put in your 2 weeks, because I agree with you. It's the responsible thing to do. If it's a job that you like and that you want on your resume, do the right thing and, keep these good connections with these people. Yeah. And I put it right there in the middle because I think it's a good move.
It is, and probably more often than not, the way to do it.
Right.
Nobody's going to go viral by their polite 2-week notice letter.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the real world, it's going to probably be the one that doesn't bite you in the ass as much as the other ones will. Mm-hmm. My number 2 is one of the best ways to go viral. It's to make a spectacle. Now, this is kind of like an umbrella category because it's up for the person's choice. There's a lot of different situations that you could do different things. So you can make it a fun, exuberant celebration of your quitting with like a marching band and a cake and all kinds of, super extras. Or it could be like Jerry Maguire with a manifesto and you're standing up and telling everybody off and trying to steal clients and stuff like that. But it's all still variations of the same thing. You're trying to make a spectacle. You're trying to get the eyes on you. This is your moment to stick it to the man, to proclaim the injustices that have been done against you. You're probably going to come off looking like the dick. You're the one who's going to be wrong here. But everybody's going to kind of silently applaud you or be like, yeah, you see what Dale did? Yeah, he ripped off his shirt and it said, fuck you on his chest. That was ballsy. But you know what happens after that? They all have to go back to their jobs. They're all probably sad and demoralized because you were the one who got to have the hero's exit. There's not too much else to go after that because that's making a spectacle. It's fun, short-lived, 3 minutes. You might be able to go viral, but probably not the best way to go.
Yeah, I like that one. It kind of ties into my number 2 a little bit. My number 2 is get caught stealing just under the limit of reportable theft. And I say this because I saw this happen when I worked at a national franchise toy store when I was like 20. There was a chick there who I did not know, but she was stealing, and she stole $250 or $300 out of my wallet, which is dumb of me to have that money in there, but I just couldn't take it to the bank before I went to work. So I had it in my wallet in my coat pocket in the break room, and it was gone. And she took all of my big bills and left me $2 bills. That's an interesting tactic. Why not just take those $2,
Was it all your $2 bills were left, like the ones with Thomas Jefferson on them? Or there were $2 bills that were left with George W?
2 $1 bills.
Okay,
yeah.
All right. It's a different story if you tell it the other way.
It's like a screw you, though, also. Like, hey, I'm taking all this, but I'm leaving you in case you need bus money or something.
Or she's like, I'm taking this because $2 bills, these aren't real. I'm not going to steal these.
Right? So one day, I didn't know that she stole this, but one day I was just walking around the store and I heard this cracking sound, and I go over and I see her, and she's like, and then she's like quickly walking away from that area. It was very shady. So I went over there and I started investigating the area, and I saw a broken watch case behind some merchandise. And I was like, oh, she's stealing stuff. Okay. And I was a snitch, I was a snitch. So I took the broken watch case and I was on my way up to the front office to show the manager. And as I was going up there, I see the employee who was stealing rip her vest off, throw it on the ground, and go, "I'm out of here, bitch!" and just walk out of the door. And then I was like, "Hey, I found this watch case." And my bosses are like, "Oh, okay, well, we will check the security footage and get back to you." And nothing ever happened. They were like, "Oh, no, we're not going to press charges." And I was like, "Well, that's clearly who stole the money out of the break room." And they were like, "Yeah, we don't have cameras in the break room, so we don't really know if she did that." And I was like, "You're not even gonna call the cops? You're not gonna do anything?" And they're like, "No, we're not gonna do anything." And I'm like, "Wow, she really got away with a lot." She has no consequences for what she did. But later on at that job, I started
Stealing watches?
Yeah, I started like hanging out in the break room 10 minutes before my shift ended. Just like, "Oh, my shift's almost over. I'll go back here and sit for 10 minutes and then clock out and leave." And one day my boss comes up and he's like, "Hey, I've noticed that you are hanging out in the break room before you leave. You shouldn't do that. You should just stay out on the floor and work your full shift." And I'm like, how do you know I'm doing that unless there are cameras in there? Because nobody else is in there when I'm doing that. So that tells me there are cameras in there. You probably do know that she took my money and you just still didn't want to do anything about it. But I think that's a good way to go. If you can get away with stealing something, if you don't care about that job and you're a garbage person anyway, take what you can, I say.
Fill your pockets up with staplers and paper clips and
Yes.
watches.
Yep.
Look out for number one. That's what you got to do. Speaking of number one, that's like the third accidental segue that I've done on this episode already. And I just want to point that out. That was pretty awesome. My number one ways to quit your job: get hit by a school bus.
Oh boy.
Yeah. So this one requires a little bit of divine intervention, because you just can't plan to get hit by a school bus. You can't plan an act of God, but you need to have some sort of life-altering event that makes you start re-examining your life and make changes. So for me, it was getting hit by a school bus. So I was walking to work. This is a true story. I don't know if you've heard. In 2010, March 1st, 2010, exactly, I was walking on my way to a job that I despised, hated every single minute I was there. And as I was crossing the street legally in the crosswalk, a school bus made a left-hand turn, didn't see me. I must have been in the blind spot or something, because according to the police report, the bus driver said, quote, "And the next thing I knew, he was on the windshield." So I got thrown through the air. My shoe flew off, and as I'm falling, I'm watching my shoe fly through the air, and I landed, broke a couple things, and ambulances came. I was in a hospital for a week. It was like a big to-do. I luckily was able to rehab and have some time off, and I was like off work for like 6 weeks or something like that. But when I went back, I realized I'm not supposed to be here. This is the universe's way of stopping me from going to this job by literally sending me through the air with this big accident. So I quit my job. I had nothing lined up. I had to get another crappy job relatively quickly after that, but I just knew that I wasn't supposed to be there at that moment. And this school bus was the thing that started it all. It was the thing that was the impetus of the change. So.
Oh my God, that one is amazing.
Yeah, that's why it's number one, baby.
Oh my God, my number one sucks compared to that. my number one was just kind of a slow burn. If you work in a job where you have clients, take them with you. So slowly gather these people and be like, "Look, I'm going to leave here. I'm going to open my own thing. I want you to come with me. I will give you so much more attention and respect, and I will treat you so much better if you come with me." And just do that, and then go open your own thing, and then you're already set. You're
staging a coup. You're staging a coup.
Yeah.
You're gonna take over.
I kind of did that a little bit with dog walking. You know, you can dog walk on the apps and stuff. And then while I'm there, I'm like, hey, if you ever, you know, want me, just here's my number. And, you know, I'll give you a better rate too. And you can just text me whenever you need me. So I've done that. And I think it's awesome.
That's also a very deceptive, and like that is a long-term play and a long play, and it requires you to be in a position of power that you can actually offer something better or different than the company that you're working for.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And I know some people also who've done, like, people who are, you know, servers at restaurants, and they open their own restaurant. And it's not that it's like, that's not exactly the same, but it kind of is the same. Hey, come over, you know, or if
Right.
you work for another salon and then you open your own salon, come on over. I think that's a baller move. That's really, you really have to be an entrepreneur to pull that off and be a good
Yeah.
business person.
And what also makes that one good is that there is a second step of that plan. You know, you have a goal of doing something, you're gonna just be doing it better. Otherwise, what are you quitting for? Like,
Yeah.
you're quitting up.
Yes. And
That's
I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say that our expert guest probably has none of these, except for maybe the 2-week notice one.
yeah. This is definitely not an advice show. This is just this is the top fun ways to do it. Yeah, let's then now whittle our list of 10 into a list of 5 so that we can take it to her and see what we're going to have. So getting hit by a bus, the divine intervention will be in there. And then stealing clients, being a baller and taking everything over is on our list as well. So is giving notice, a 2-week notice, because it's on both of our lists. You ranked it higher on your individual list, so those points go to you on our top 5 list. So we have 2 more spaces open for our top 5. So let's start figuring out here. I like the idea of making a spectacle. I know it's kind of a generic umbrella type situation where, you know, writing a nasty letter or something like that could fall into that category. But I think making a spectacle is a fun top 5 way.
I agree with you. I would put the spectacle in there. It is better than writing a letter. That's kind of a more low-key way to do it. Not as fun. Also, I kind of feel like the ones were similar that we had about just kind of disappearing. Oh, no, you said move. You said move.
I said move, like completely ghost and
and
move
the other
away.
one was the walkout, right?
And walk out, yeah. And you had no call, no show, and you had the letter. And caught stealing.
I feel like the walkout is similar to the no call, no show. It's like you walked out, but it's just nobody saw you do it.
And so is moving out of state and starting a new life is also kind of walk out, no call, no show. You're just disappearing.
I'm definitely you got to definitely put the spectacle on there. Did you already put that in? So we have one more to decide. You know what? I'm going to go with the moving because it is similar to just what I said about no call, no show. You just disappear. But then moving adds a grandiose step that you just can't, especially if you moved just to get away from that job. That is incredible.
That's a commitment, and especially if you move far away and then also change your face, you could have stayed and changed your face. So that's even more grandiose. It's like,
you're talking about plastic surgery?
I'm talking like a face-off, John Travolta and Nicolas Cage switching faces type thing. Yeah, plastic surgery. Like reinvent yourself completely.
Why did neither of us mention plastic surgery on this list? I mean, that is a wonderful suggestion.
All right, so that's our top 5 then. We got divine intervention, like getting hit by a bus. We have stealing clients and taking over and doing your own thing. Giving a 2-week notice, very responsible. Making a spectacle. And last one's going to be leaving, ghosting, just moving away, possibly changing your face and taking over somebody else's life. We don't know yet. But that will be our top 5. We're going to be joined after our break with Lydia Lee of Screw the Cubicle. So stay tuned.
Hey everybody, this is Jeff, the host of Stuff I Never Knew Trivia Game Show podcast. Each week, 3 players from around the world call in and battle it out over 3 rounds of trivia. Each week there's a new show. You'll meet new people from around the world. We have over 80 episodes. We're in season 4. That's the Stuff I Never Knew Trivia Game Show podcast, available everywhere you listen to podcasts. That's stuffineverknew.com, stuffineverknew.com, that's stuffineverknew.com.
All right, welcome back. Lydia Lee is the work reinvention coach and small business strategist at Screw The Cubicle. Since 2013, she's helped hundreds of people transition out of the golden corporate handcuffs, develop successful self-employment strategies, and create an impact in the work they want to do. Her mission has been to support new entrepreneurs and changemakers to find the new direction, pathway, courage, and clarity to make their business a 100% expression of their gifts, values, and personality. And today she is our guest expert on how to quit your job. Lydia, welcome to List Rate Rank.
Thank you for having me. It's going to be a fun conversation. And I want to say, David, you have a great voice, and I wish I could get you as my hype man. Like you're like the recording that I record for everybody whenever they come and inquire about my services.
All we need is like a drum roll behind, some fireworks going off. I watch a lot of professional wrestling. That's what it is. Before we get into how to quit your job, I want to ask you a couple questions about how you quit your job, because you have climbed the corporate ladder. You've been to the top. You've quit your 6-figure-a-year salary to go start your own business, to start Screw the Cubicle. You said once you got up on top of that corporate ladder, you didn't like the view. Tell me about that life-changing experience that made you launch Screw the Cubicle.
Well, you know, to be honest, it wasn't as intentional as I would like this sort of dream story to start out. It kind of, was something that was kind of forced upon me in a lot of ways, because I never really intended to quit my job. I think what had happened was I was hit by a bit of a health scare, and it sort of debilitated my physical body to continue working that 9-to-5 job. And I'm one of those things where I'm one of those people who are, quite a high achiever. I probably don't really realize I was going through a lot of anxiety and stress until my body was like, you are just not continuing again. I don't care what you think you can do. I don't care what your Asian mom told you you're able to do and push through all these adversities, but we're going to put you down for a little while, So I was actually on a corporate business trip. So I used to work in the international education industry. I worked with the government of Canada. I was promoting education in Canada. Traveling about 6 months out of the year, look like a really sexy job, jet-setting lifestyle on paper, but it really is quite an isolated, lonely life when you're on the road in foreign countries without family, without your spouse, right? Like it can take a toll, I think, on your well-being. But a lot of that was sort of imposed by myself, these sort of pressures, because at that time when I had this health scare, I hadn't taken a holiday for about 2 years. I kept getting paid out at the end of the year. I was paying off a huge amount of student loan debt, thinking I was this responsible human, and working my butt off, right? Trying to get a partnership at the corporation I was working on. So it was sort of in 2012, February 2012, I was in Russia, in Moscow, in the dead of winter. And I actually developed a panic attack in the hotel room from not sleeping, just going on appointments back to back, and I've developed a 2 days of agoraphobia, where I could not leave the hotel room, and literally had to get a flight home quickly 2 days later because I could not continue my trip. And it was a really scary time to be like alone in a foreign country, like dark, cold, nobody helping you. But it was sort of a wake-up call, of like, what am I doing in terms of my health and my well-being to continue trucking along this way, and kind of disregarding some of these big signals that, I needed a break. And there were lots of sort of things that were happening in my role with my bosses and the departments that wasn't very good. There's a lot of bullying happening in that industry, that I just sort of sucked it up and kept continuing. And I think all that sort of added a toll fuel, to what happened to me that day. And as you do when you think you're going insane and crazy and think it's all your fault. Thankfully, I worked with a really good therapist that didn't, shove a bunch of pills down my throat and just said, here's some crazy pills and hopefully you get back on the wagon. It really just helped me kind of discern what was important for my life and were decisions I was making at that time, helping lead me to a life experience I really wanted to have, or was it, distracting me from what was the ideal scenario for my life? And Screw the Cubicle, to be honest, was also not supposed to be intended to be a business. It was actually an online blog that was a place I was journaling my identity crisis. That was when I was leaving my corporate job, going, am I doing the right thing starting a business? Because the first business I started was actually a business that was from the same industry. It was sort of the easiest transition, if you will, for me, to use my own context, use my own knowledge and expertise, and start something on the same sort of, lineage as my resume. And Screw the Cubicle was a blog, really, that I was sharing with my friends and family who were asking, what the hell are you doing? We're in a recession and people are losing jobs and you're giving up your 6-figure job. You should be grateful, like all these guilt trips that I would get leaving my job because nobody understood why I would do such a thing. And then I just sort of went, read the blog, stop bothering me and just read the blog. And then it became, the blog a year and a half later became something. And it wasn't until a woman from Toronto, who was a lawyer, messaged me and said, do you do career coaching, for people in transition of jobs? And I had to Google what a coach was because literally I didn't know what that was. And so that began my journey of exploring kind of a different skill set. And now obviously it's my full-time business.
Well, that's awesome. I think you touched upon something there because there's not really a support system or a guide for what to do after you quit your job. So I guess that's kind of where Screw the Cubicle comes in, or your coaching business comes in, right? Picks up and kind of does the hard stuff. Because the easiest thing is to quit.
Totally, right? And there's so many ways to quit, which obviously is what we're going to talk about today. And there's not one way, And right. So where I was sort of missing that support was sort of the in-between stage of like, I know I want to quit my job, but like, what would I do that is not, I did a very practical move, right? Which was like, continue in the same industry, use the same context, which a lot of people do, right? Sort of a clear transition. But at times people do wonder, do I still want to continue what I've been doing for the last 10 years? Is there a different way to keep using my skills? And what are my skills anyway, if it wasn't in conjunction with the exact industry I used to do it for? And so there's all these questions that are very personal. And I didn't really find a resource that helped me to navigate some of the nuance of those questions, besides the sort of high and bright success stories of different businesses being built. But that didn't help me with that question of what should I be building based on my experience, my ideal lifestyle choices and my values.
Mm-hmm. Well, what are some of the things that you had to ask and look at yourself in the mirror and say, how do I figure that out? What is the answer?
It's not an overnight answer. And that's the thing. People are kind of trying to find the magic bullet of an answer.
Look, Lydia, we asked you on here for answers.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm not going to give you the easy answer, unfortunately.
I want to know specifically.
Yeah, exactly. That's what we want, the instant gratification society, right? That's what we want right away. I want to Google my answer and I want it to be the right answer. I did a lot of experimentation, and it's something that people aren't very comfortable with because it's uncertainty. We all can witness that going through the world, burning up pretty much right now, mm-hmm. and standing in the middle of like a burning world and going, what do I do when I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow? And sort of be okay with that. Be okay with uncertainty and playing around and getting real curious about certain possibilities without it leading to particular outcomes right away. It's a hard thing for humans to swallow, to do something without a predictable outcome,
Were there any surprises that you discovered for yourself while you were going through this journey, or things that you went one way and decided to abandon and go the other?
Yes, totally. My first business, like I said, the transitional business of staying in that industry, something I did really well. I replaced my income within 6 months, which is a pretty good achievement. But I was actually more depressed working for myself because I thought the ticket was being able to work for myself, pantsless at work and managing my time, right? And you go, that's going to solve my depression and my anxieties.
That sounds like a podcast. That sounds like a podcast, pantsless at work.
Pants
I'm
doesn't
not,
work.
yeah, I'm not wearing pants right now. So.
Yeah.
Me neither.
I put on
Me
a
neither.
polo shirt, but I still have the same shorts that I've been wearing all day on underneath here.
That's right. That's right. No one needs to know. Yeah. So the first business that I started was, like I said, successful on paper in the sense of it made me money. It helped me get on my job. I could pay the rent, and continue to have a good life. But what I realized actually, part of the anxiety and part of the resistance in my job from the previous corporation was that I wasn't actually a huge advocate of traditional education, and yet I was selling it. It was sort of like against what I kind of believed in. And yet I was selling programs and partnering up with particular people that were still trying to sort of shove students into huge universities, and people wanted to come on these programs just to have the word Harvard or Oxford on their little resume, and it was for the wrong reasons. Whereas I believed in, when I talked to the students I was working with, was that they needed life experience. They wanted to actually look at possibilities of what to do after high school. And I wasn't someone that particularly felt that my life was shaped by traditional education. If anything, I felt that everything I learned and who shaped me as a character, or what shaped me as a character, was through real internships or real experiences that I felt maybe we needed to do more in nurturing that in our young children, and I wasn't selling those type of programs. So that resistance became that demotivation for me as well, to go, I'm making money, but I'm not believing in the thing I'm doing. And unfortunately, I'm built as someone that if I'm going to wake up in the morning and do something well, I kind of got to embrace it in a way that feels right for me. And so meaning was sort of missing for me in the first business, right? And that was part of my exploration on Screw the Cubicle, was this search for meaning. How important is meaning to our careers? Does meaning change over time? Can we bring new meaning to the skill sets we have, and how do we do that? And so as I explored that, as I said, unconsciously went into a territory that I was never, quote unquote, skilled to do, but through my own search for answers, through my own journey of kind of helping myself with that pain, it became kind of a resource for people. And I could sort of help people with those same questions, to look at what they've got, resources they have at their hand. But if they weren't to do it the same way again, what does that look like as a new possibility?
Right, because not everybody is up for the 8-hour day, 5-day a week, 40-hour work week. The world is changing. And like you alluded to earlier, with all the changes this year, people are working from home, people are losing their jobs, they're not even getting the opportunity to quit. They have to kind of reinvent themselves and find something new. So, so a lot of the things that apply to career reinvention and coming back from your coaching is really topical today. Right now, what I would like to do, because the first half of the show, Felicia and I talked about the first step of this process, the actual decision to quit your job. Everything else after that is the hard work, as you said. It's the hustle. It's the boring part that a lot of people aren't prepared for. So right now, what I'd like to do is then now introduce to you our top 5 lists that we have created, and then we're going to have you rank them from 5 to 1, and which one is the best. And then the point value will be spread, and we'll have some fun.
Okay.
So in no particular order: 2-week notice, go into your boss, give a nice letter, be polite, burn no bridges. Next up, make a spectacle. That's the fun ones where you could scream, yell, you could hire a band to come in and play your way out as you march. Number 3, no particular order: stealing clients. Burn the bridges on the way out, sneak it, build your own side business. Next one would be move away, just completely ghost, just disappear, reinvent yourself, get a new face if you need it. And lastly, get hit by a bus. So that would be a divine intervention, a big catalyst that tells you that you need to quit your job and make life changes. So hit by a bus, stealing clients, 2-week notice, make a spectacle, ghost, move away.
And this is where Lydia tells us that she's done all 5 at the same time, right?
In different ways. I'm not sure if I've ever been hit by a bus, but I did need some divine intervention at some point.
Yeah. You were metaphorically hit by a bus with the anxiety.
Totally. It did feel like a goddamn bus.
All right. So, Lydia, in your opinion, though, what would be number 5? This would be the least good reason of these to quit your job, or a way to quit your job.
I would say stealing clients. That really just like shakes me up in my ethical bones. It's like, that's the one thing I feel that was probably the first thing I thought about, when I was doing that sort of linear leap, right? Like for staying in the industry, I knew the first thing my bosses were going to ask me was, how the hell are you going to get clients? You're going to poach? And that was actually a legal thing I had to deal with. I was sued actually by my old employer, even though I said to them I wasn't poaching clients and that I was completely moving in a different direction in the industry. I was staying in the industry, not really competing with you, but it didn't matter. They were threatened by me in some way and actually tried to sue me in Supreme Court. And I think if you are going to want to stand tall and confident in the decision that you make, you have to kind of make that decision with moral judgment. So that everything that you're doing is kosher.
All right. So then what is your number 4 of our list?
Number 4 would be, I guess, moving away, the ghosting.
Mm-hmm.
Happening a lot in the dating world, I feel, these days. But that's, again, hits me in the ethical bones, right? It's that I didn't care and respect about you enough. Thanks for the opportunity, but I'm gone now. Thanks for all that, right? And again, that can really hurt your reputation. And to me, it's like your job and your colleagues and your boss, no matter if you like them or don't like them, has been a relationship in your life. And to be able to move on and to be able to actually even have closure in that job, we have to have these uncomfortable conversations as we do in relationships. And even if you move apart, there's some nice things to be able to say about, hey, I've learned this. I thank you for giving me the opportunity to learn resilience, to learn what I might not want to do again. Maybe don't say that one. But it's I think, again, a much kinder way to break that relationship and move on from each other, and even potentially offer support in a different way. And that's what I did actually when I first left my job, is that I negotiated a consultancy with my employer. And so I didn't leave completely. It again was another safe step for me to do that. They could still utilize me. And then 4 months after getting my services, they did sue me after that. But in that first 4 months, it allowed me to have a security, of a 20-hour-a-week paycheck as a consultant for me to do that.
Nice. Number 3, please.
Number 3 would be, I guess, make a spectacle. I'm thinking of like The Office, Office Space, that movie where they like really just obliterate that printer. Like, what a fulfilling scene that everybody, in my mind, I wanted to do.
Can I
my
just
job
say,
as well?
Yeah, that is definitely one of those that connects right away. Everybody who works in a cubicle dreams of knocking down that cubicle wall to get a better view of, even if it's a window or just another wall, or you're right, beating up that printer copier. That's epic.
Yeah, you want to do that for sure. It's like, kicking up a storm, right? To prove a point before you leave. But I think, again, that sounds like fun and probably super juicy and fulfilling for like a split second to be able to do that. But it's that reputation thing again, it's that like now people can go, yeah, she was crazy and she should have left. And it's probably her fault. She didn't make it in this, industry, and away she goes, right? Like, and again, I would never want to live with that. I'd rather leave with my head held high and knowing that I did my best to leave this company better than I came in.
And now that brings us to number 2, between divine intervention or
and the 2 weeks notice.
Yeah. I
would say the get hit by a bus, although that I like the second part of that, which is to get hit by divine intervention. Mm-hmm. I think if you get hit by a bus, it's just over.
Some of us
it's just
survive.
Over.
Some of us survive.
Some of us do survive. Maybe a lot of us need that hit. I mean, COVID, right? This whole thing of us, whenever you're listening to this podcast, hopefully COVID is over by then, but we never know when we'll be out of this apocalypse. But, people have been saying that COVID was kind of the divine intervention. It was the thing that made me question my mortality. It was the thing that made me value what's important to me. And I kind of, and now that I'm actually stuck at home with my spouse, I realize how much my spouse does around the house when I'm not there, and I appreciate them more, or my kids needed me and I shouldn't, now I need to raise them and I don't want to put them in daycare, and, I need to find a different alternative for this. So it's that wake up call. Mine was that agoraphobia nightmare in a Russian hotel room. And for other people, it's COVID-19, it's a divorce, it's someone died in the family that makes them question something in their lives. So I want to give like a split answer there. Don't get hit by a bus, but do sort of embrace something hard and difficult that maybe have come into your life that feels painful, and go, I wonder if I can get a breakthrough from a breakdown.
Nice.
And how can I navigate reframing my mind to look at this as maybe the catalyst for change, and how to embrace that change in a much healthier way.
Awesome. Now, briefly tell me about the number one then, the very boring and unexciting 2-week notice.
Well, I think giving the notice is preparing, right? Preparing the people that has depended on you, has relied upon you, that you've already built many, many years of some sort of equity with people. Why drain it? Why flush it down the toilet with a small burst of something that you might regret later on, right? Yeah. Like I feel that 2 weeks notice, sometimes it's 4. I mean, I had to give 6 weeks notice. That was sort of in my contract to be able to, because I was in charge of some really important territories. But it does allow that preparation notice to go, all right, how do I, right? Like I said, leave this place better than I found it. and maintain my reputation in this industry. But I think that as we make changes in our life, we don't have to kind of be bitter about it, because I think it's like a divorce, the more you hate your ex-spouse and the more you go, this is his fault and it's her fault and I didn't do anything here. The more you're going to bring that baggage to the next relationship if you don't kind of understand, what was my role to play? I know we're getting a little bit spiritual here, or like therapeutic here, right? But it's a little bit like that, right? Like if you left a job and you're just so raging and angry about it, I don't know, I feel that you could bring into the next thing, and then you don't trust other people, you're not generous anymore, you're not kind anymore. And like, I think that could really affect your humanness, and having that breakup with your job in the most sort of kindest, generous, and figuring out like, hey, I had a role to play in this. It wasn't all bad. And I learned some good things here. And I've learned more about myself that I think is better for me for the next path. And I can bless this job and go, thanks for that. And I'm just going to move on from there and leave it, in a much better way. Okay,
so awesome. Thank you very much for rating ours. So the point value, the way we do it here on the show, have fun with it, is place number 5 gets 1 point, 2 points, 3 points, up to number 1, which gets 5 points. Each of us has a few different nominations. So Felicia had stealing clients and 2-week notice. I had the divine intervention, hit by a bus, spectacle, and ghosting. So the way you ranked them, I ended up with 9 points. Felicia, you had 4 points. I'm sorry,
Felicia.
6 points. 6 points.
Oh, give her the extra 2.
Yeah, either way, she still lost. Now, Lydia, do you have your opinion on 5 ways to quit your job?
Yeah, I do. They're much more practical, I think, but and less sort of fun and maybe something that you would do in a movie. But I think it's good for real life.
I think part of researching this topic, and Felicia, correct me if I'm wrong, was to try to avoid those fun, crazy, absurd things like skydiving and putting your boss's phone number in the sky and saying, everybody call this jerk. Felicia, what were some of the things that you were seeing when you were researching?
People who worked at fast food places putting up on the sign, like, go screw yourself in the name of the boss, or now hiring idiots, things like that. They were very cute. But I agree, like, that the list needs to be practical. She's the coach. She's the expert. I love this coaching energy that she's bringing. This, like, really motivating me to go out and do something. If there's anything to do right now, I'd be doing it. So, I'm cool with the practical list. I'm all about it.
All right. So give us your 5, Lydia, please.
All right. The first one I have is what I call, like, start with low hanging fruit, and what the low hanging fruit I mean by that is, like, kind of similar to what I started doing. And a lot of my clients actually, when we explored this pathway, right, of sort of going, what do we have in our disposal at the moment that's going to allow us to quit faster than starting a brand new business from scratch? Because everybody has like the stomach for that. It's like birthing a child. Like it takes a while for that thing to start giving you some value without taking everything from you, And so it may not be that everybody wants to be an entrepreneur. No, not everybody wants to have a business right away. And actually, if anything, we want to maybe start working in an environment being kind of more self-employed, maybe being a little bit more having autonomy over our time and how we want to produce things. But we kind of still like a security of a paycheck. And that's okay too. So the low-hanging fruit approach I look at is sort of like, one is looking at like what I did with my current employers and going, if I didn't just jump ship completely, what am I willing to do for these guys that isn't going to cost me my mental wellness and my stress and, redoing the same thing I used to do here, right? And part of my issue was that I was in charge of way too many territories. I was in charge of way too many commissions coming from different people. I didn't want to manage people anymore. And then what I discovered is I actually really hate managing people. And that was part of my displeasure at work, was managing people's emotional stuff at work and making them sell stuff, to make the monthly quota or something like that, right? And so I thought, okay, how do I continue to do my job and produce good value for these people, but kind of create like a win-win situation where they're going to get the best value out of me as a consultant, as a freelancer, as someone that works independently. So I have to sell them the idea of like, hey, you don't have to pay for my office space. You don't have to pay for my medical. I can take that out on my own. You don't have to pay for all these different things that you used to pay for me as a full-time employee. And instead, why don't I just focus on one little project that I know that you really want to get going this year? And I already know what to do here. I've been progressing on it. And that's where I basically give you the most value and then hire my position out again with someone new. And that worked really well, as I said, for the first 4 months. And actually for a lot of my clients, this worked really well as well because the companies didn't want to lose them because they're already a good asset to that company. But if you were to negotiate a different approach, a different way that you could still work from home, maybe spend less time working at the office, right? Choose one little corner of your thing that you want to do for them and start to create something that's a win-win for both of them. I think that could be a pathway that people can consider. The second one is kind of a bit what we touched on today, and I call it the repurpose your skills, like finding meaning in the skill sets you've got without throwing the baby out of the bathwater. Right. And very likely, even, my boyfriend, I was telling you before, David, it used to be in the finance industry, knows everything about finance. He's also in improv at the moment, right? That's where you guys have that linkage. And he loves money. He loves finance, but hates working for financial institutions. But does it mean that he has to throw out his wealth of knowledge and all the money he paid, in the biggest university in Canada to learn this? No, he could redeploy what he knows about the banking industry and maybe give those answers out to the poor, suckers that are, in our day-to-day life that don't know anything about taxes and saving and investments.
So are you saying that your boyfriend commandeers and hijacks every improv scene that he's in and steers financial tips into his improv scenes?
He does do a little bit of improv about his life, about like this like burnout as a someone that's worked in finance and the monstrous,
Yes.
money hungry people that come behind him and make him crunch more numbers and make more money, and then who he is now is like, he doesn't want to do anything to do with spreadsheets, he's like planting and improv and anything to do with hands and creativity. He's all into it, but he's kind of having a midlife crisis and all of it as well, and that's kind of funny. It
sounds like we need him on our next podcast.
You should have him on your podcast. I think that would be pretty freaking fun. So yeah. I think repurpose your skills to a more meaningful direction, like find creative ways to use what you've got, right? Instead of going, screw it, I don't want to do anything I've done before, but maybe it's just, you've been a little bit have like PTSD, from a job or like a relationship in that work that has caused you to feel, I don't want to do this anymore. But maybe if you actually take a pause, take a break, sometimes we just need a bit of a break and some resting time to gain a bit of perspective, and then just sort of go, well, what was the thing that did attract me from the beginning of time before it was tainted by bad bosses and bad working environments? Like, what was my purpose and meaning to want to pursue this, and how can I bring that back, into a path that I might want to pursue now?
Awesome.
Right? Repurposing your skills. Third one is finding good problems to solve. Like when we think about starting a business, we're always like, what looks fancy? What's out there selling in the world? How do I get on the next Amazon train? Or how do I do a make money while you sleep, passive income, blah, 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 that is very shiny and, sounds lucrative, but if it was so easy, everybody else would be doing it already or been successful doing it. But I think there comes a time that if meaning is important to you, that you want to wake up every morning doing something you care about that is impactful, but you get something out of it too, that it's not just making money and that's it, right? Is to actually look at real problems that are happening in the world with, again, your community, right? What you know in your world that you sometimes go, man, I wish that could be done differently. Or this way of getting to shows or getting bookings for my comedy shows is kind of dinosaur-like. And I wish there was a better way for performers to be able to be like a Tinder for performers. And I don't know, like I'm making shit up obviously right now about that industry. But you suffer with a lot of like things that piss you off every day, of what something is difficult for you or how to achieve something. And sometimes being in the vicinity of those problems are actually clues to potential solutions you could create for it. So I think that's a good way to kind of look at what business can I start is, instead of asking that question, is what problems can I solve that I know a lot about? And maybe there's a part of my experience or my skill set that could actually solve that problem differently than how it's being done regularly in the world. Make sense?
Awesome. Yes, absolutely. Almost too much sense.
The fourth one is kind of simple, but I think we forget that this is kind of an intangible skill that we all have within us, is kind of teaching people something right? You can call it expertise. I find the word expertise makes people kind of have the heebie-jeebies because they're like, well, I'm not allowed to, I'm not an expert, so I can't teach that thing. But I kind of define expertise as kind of like, oh, you're you're a second grader teaching a first grader how to go through first grade. You don't have to be the best at every freaking thing. You just have to be really good at grade 1 of that thing, right? And there's always someone behind you. There's a pack of people behind you that's willing to learn grade 1 stuff rather than grade 10 stuff, So kind of take that inventory. What do I know how to do? And I kind of look at leaps from the cubicle as like 2 types of leaps. There's lateral leaps, kind of similar to what I did, right? Being in the same industry, doing exactly what I did, but slightly differently. It's an easier leap because you know what you're doing, but if you may not want to stay in that industry, that may not be the leap you want to go for. The second leap is like what I call like leap of faith. It's kind of, you've never been paid to do that, but you've had experience in some kind. You've kind of had like the school of life, the school of hard knocks that has taught you things. And it helps you to achieve certain things in your life. And it doesn't have to be something career related either, or business related. Like I have clients, for example, that started businesses where they were mothers that knew how to raise an autistic child or a child with special needs. And they don't have any qualifications in that sense of that they can teach a curriculum about raising an autistic kid, but they've got some real life experiences of what you need to prepare as a parent, as a single parent. How do you prepare financially? How do you prepare emotionally to raise a kid with special needs? And that can actually be something you solve, right? So looking at your experiences, not only professionally, but even in your personal life, what have I solved that I can teach people who are going through the same thing as I have?
Awesome.
And then the last one is, again, something we touched on. If we don't want to jump off the cliff and hope the parachute opens, let's prepare to de-risk our leap, right? Like what's my biggest fear right now? If it's money, then we got to look at that and figure out how do we create a safe zone, like a cushion pot for ourselves. And what's enough? That's the other part, is when people struggle with money or stress about money, it's kind of, this sort of thought that doesn't have any tangible numbers attached to it. We don't have enough. I can never afford this. And it's like these high level, like worries that aren't grounded by real data and facts, right? So when I said to myself, I'm not allowed to leave a 6-figure job until I start making 6 figures in my business, that was just something I pulled up from my ass. I didn't know why I said that. I just felt safe to say that. But the real question I should be asking is, what is an enough number that I need to live a pretty decent life? Maybe if I cut down on eating out and drinking wine every day and, have a healthier life and have minimalism approaches to my life, what do I really need to survive to be able to gain spaciousness for something new in my life, right? And that number, when I calculated it, ended up being less than half of what I thought I needed to take home. Because when I crunched the actual math of the numbers, after taxes in Canada, making a 6-figure job is 40% to the government. So here I was thinking in my mind, I take all that money home, but that's actually not what's happening in reality. And when I divide that over the hours I was working at the office, I was making actually less than my assistant. So those sorts of information, I think we got to get real with so that we can make decisions better to prepare our environment for change, but also like, what are those dirty details that we want to save up for, budget for, right? Let's prepare an environment for that change so that it's more easy for us to do that change rather than guessing along the way.
Awesome.
I absolutely love listening to you. These are all amazing tips. They're not tips, they're more than tips. It's amazing advice. So I really enjoyed listening to you a lot. I got a lot out of this.
What I'd like,
that.
Yeah, if I could speak for Felicia, I think what she's saying is, will you be our life coach?
Please.
Yes,
I like that, life coach.
Yeah, life coach of List Rate Rank.
Yeah.
Well,
hey,
awesome.
I'm happy to come back anytime to give my little sound bites if you want to have a fun conversation.
Oh, that'd be amazing. It was a pleasure speaking with you today. If people listening at home want to know more about the things that you do or learn how to contact you, where can they find you online?
Well, the best place to go is my website, so screwthecubicle.com, exactly how it sounds. And sort of on the homepage, I do release a lot of sort of free trainings. I think people need to warm up to this idea. As I said, it's not an overnight thing, and you shouldn't feel bad that you don't feel brave enough to take this leap, because it's not an overnight decision. And so what I've sort of been curating is sort of small steps. Like a lot of stuff what we talked about today is expanded into sort of more in-depth training, and it's all free of charge. You can absolutely just jump on and do a free training with me. I do love to teach on these subjects, and whatever topics that sort of call to you, they're very likely available on the resource page on the front page of Screw the Cubicle. And also my weekly YouTube channel, which if you go on YouTube and type in Screw the Cubicle, you'll find me every week producing some short videos for you to help you kind of manage uncertainty during changes in your life, and also kind of the simple and uncomplicated way to test out ideas and figure out what you want to do with your life that isn't going to make you feel like you have to have a Gandhi moment to, do some action in your life. And actually moving forward with imperfect action is probably the best way for us to find better answers for our lives too.
Awesome. Great. Thank you so much, Lydia. Really appreciate your time. That was great.
Yeah,
Great.
it was really informative and great. I agree. Yeah, thank you so much.
Bye.
Please rate and subscribe to List Rate Rank on Apple, Google, Spotify, or YouTube, and find our bonus content on listraterank.com. Follow @ListRateRank on Twitter and Instagram, like List Rate Rank on Facebook, and join our Facebook group to get in on the fun. Thank you for listening to List Rate Rank.
And many more.
Awesome.
Whew. Sorry, I just feel like, I don't know.
And motivated, right?
I am ridiculously motivated. Like,
What
I want to go
should I do now?
write a book or something. Yeah, like just get this energy done.